the evil emanates from the fact that we have fiat money, but all empires will go away and they'll dissipate, they'll fall apart one way or the other. And I think we're seeing the cracks on that. And if you're worried about deficits, you can't deal with that unless you deal with the printing presses coming out of the Federal Reserve. The whole system is illegal and unconstitutional. And here on technicality, the law says I can stay here forever and I don't have to listen to anybody else. So I think it's rather ironic. But I've never seen a chairman answer questions like that. They want to do things in secret. Once they have an audit, they're going to find out all the mischief, and they'll be amazed what they've been getting away with. People have to realize that the Federal Reserve is the biggest taxer in the country because they steal your wealth without even entering your house. The ultimate goal is to clean up our mess, is to get rid of this wicked monetary system, which is a tax system, that is, get rid of the Fed. The end stages go very rapidly, when people rush out of the dollar system. But I don't think it's going to happen next month or so because the other countries we've made them dependent on us. But there's going to be some incident. When the gold exploded in the 70s, it went from 35 up to 800. Now, I think you're going to see it double, triple, and quadruple if we don't do the right thing.
This Kitco News interview is brought to you by Goldback, inflation-resistant, 24-karat gold currency.
Hey everyone, I'm Jeremy Sauer, and this is Kitco News. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell made headlines when he told a room full of journalists that apparently he can't be fired, even if President-elect Donald Trump asks him to step down. And this, despite the fact that Powell himself has never been elected to the position. And that comment has sparked a wider debate over the Federal Reserve's unchecked power and its far-reaching impact on the lives of millions of Americans. Joining me now to discuss this growing issue is Dr. Ron Paul, former U.S. Congressman, two-time presidential candidate, and a leading voice calling for significant reforms to the Federal Reserve or even its elimination. He's also the host of the Liberty Report. Dr. Paul, it's great to have you back on the show.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
All right, let's get this interview started. As I mentioned in the intro, at the press conference last week, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell was asked whether he would step down if President-elect Donald Trump asked him to resign. Powell answered no, adding that the law does not permit the president to fire the Fed chairman. Let's quickly listen to that clip.
Some of the president-elect's advisors have suggested that you should resign. If he asked you to leave, would you go?
No.
Can you follow up on, do you think that legally you're not required to leave?
No.
Do you believe that the president has the power to fire or demote you, and has the Fed determined the legality of a president demoting at will any of the other governors with leadership positions?
Not permitted under the law.
Not what?
Not permitted under the law.
Thank you.
Not permitted under the law. Okay, I want to start by getting your thoughts on this statement. It's got a lot of people talking. I mean, is Powell wrong here?
It's ironic that he's worrying about following the law. The whole system is illegal and unconstitutional. And here on technicality, the law says I can stay here forever and I don't have to listen to anybody else. So I think it's rather ironic. But I've never seen a chairman answer questions like that. That was sort of entertaining because he was a bit upset, and he's short. No, boy, I'll tell you. So, but they need more of that. That's why I've been after the Congress and others to look into this whole system that is unconstitutional, illegal, and causes so much harm and finances the government. And if you're worried about deficits, you can't deal with that unless you deal with the printing presses coming out of the Federal Reserve. So that is ironic, but I hope this will, the change in the administration and all, that there will be more people looking into this. But there are so many people who benefit by the continuation of the fiat system that it's going to be very hard to reverse course, unfortunately.
Yeah, you said in one of your Liberty Report episodes that, quote, no power was ever granted to the federal government to create a monopoly bank that manipulates interest rates and counterfeits money. So, the big issue is not who has more authority over the other, the president or the Fed chairman. The issue is that the Federal Reserve should not exist at all. So can you give our background, a little bit of background here, Dr. Paul, to the viewers? How was the Fed created, and why shouldn't the Fed's unchecked powers exist at all?
Well, you could go back to 1913, and that's when the Federal Reserve Act was passed, and it was in the Wilson era, and that moved us into the progressive era of constant wars and welfarism and runaway deficit. But it really started before that. It's this battle over central banking occurred with Jefferson and Hamilton, and the first bank was allowed to expire, but they tried to get a second bank, and fortunately, Andrew Jackson was around, and he vetoed that, and then it wasn't followed up. But they quickly incorporated, the whole idea of having a central bank into the Federal Reserve Act, which there were a few people, talking about it and opposing it, but I think it was passed, on a midnight at Christmas time. Yeah. So it was all shenanigans, and you could date. There are two things that people could date major changes with monetary changes. That would be the establishment of the Federal Reserve, but also, February 5th or August 15th, 1971, with the bankruptcy, and where we went off gold absolutely, completely with everybody. And that was when gold was supposedly $35 an ounce. That's when I had been interested in the issue, but I said, this is a big day. But I only could find one other person in my hometown that even had the vaguest notion about what was going on. But all my concerns have come about, and I think we're still just barely into the complete dissolution of what's going to happen with the changeover from this funny money system to something more constitutional.
Yeah, funny money. I like that. Okay, well, over the course of the 2024 presidential campaign, Trump has mentioned the idea of having a say in Fed policy. Back in August, he said, quote, the president should have at least a say in there. He pointed out that his case, and I quote, I've made a lot of money, I was very successful, and I think that I have a better instinct than, in many cases, people that would be on the Federal Reserve or even the chairman. I guess my question is, here, what role should the president or anyone else in government play in determining where interest rates should be or what the inflation target should be?
Well, I'd advise they read the Constitution, and I advise that they study Austrian economics and find out why monetary policy is so important. And if you want to live in a free society and limited government and not constant wars, you have to know about this. So the evil emanates from the fact that we have fiat money, and unfortunately, in some ways, we have been blessed, especially since World War II, of having a society very, very wealthy, very, very rich, very, 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 strong with the reserve currency of the world, and very, very aggressive in building an empire. But all empires will go away, and they'll dissipate, they'll fall apart one way or the other. And I think we're seeing the cracks on that. I think, the BRIC nations are talking about it. And so we've aggravated a lot of people over the last 20, 30 years with our aggressive foreign policy. And of course, our badgering people, you do what we tell you, or we'll punish you. We'll punish you financially, or we will bomb you if you don't listen. Yeah. And I think people are getting tired of it. So I would say the new administration has a real challenge when some of these things come to light.
Yeah, it's funny because if we ran a business, there's been a lot of notion and discussion about we should run the country as if we're running a business. If I was running a business, I would have to be audited. So why is the Fed not audited?
Well, it's because they want to do things in secret. They want to be fun because, I'm against the Fed. I want to abolish it. But people say, well, you talk more about auditing. I said, well, that's the step you have to do to get the public in support of it. And we do have a lot more support in the conversation about the Federal Reserve from the time I went to Congress in the 60s. And people are interested in it, but because once they have an audit, they're going to find out all the mischief, and they'll be amazed what they've been getting away with. And I think of all the international financial emergencies they have. You can't find out exactly who did what when, but they pull it out fairly often. But one of these days, they won't be able to pull it out just by creating more credit and it's making people satisfied. But I think one of the reasons that's happening is we are very wealthy. We don't have a sound currency, but the rest of the world hasn't done very well at finding a replacement, even though they're starting to talk about it.
Yeah, to your point, I mean, you've been discussing this issue for a long time. You've warned that debasing the dollar is like counterfeiting, and you even wrote the book titled And the Fed back in 2010, I think it was published. We cut a short clip for our viewers from 2009. Let's take a quick listen.
Debasing a currency is counterfeiting. It leads to political instability and violence. Wealth cannot be achieved by creating money by fiat. The whole process is unconstitutional. That's and the Fed.
This was more than 15 years ago now, and you looked great, Doctor, but could you make a comparison of what's going on now in terms of debt and the dollar's purchasing power?
Well, it's a continuation of it, and I think it surprises some people that it has lasted this long, but I think it's because the opposition has been inundated by our power, our wealth, and our willingness to, accept this role as the policeman of the world. And if they had, if they had an ability and understanding on how to deal with it, they would. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to go through the ringer. Some people said, well, you just need more people in Congress to pass out audit the Fed. That's not going to happen. Believe me. Even if you did get 50% of it, there'd be riots in the street. You mean the government can't print my money? How am I going to get paid? Because there's no more taxes to have. And people have to realize that the Federal Reserve is the biggest taxer in the country because they steal your wealth without even entering your house. All they do is devalue the currency, and they pay 10 cents on the dollar, and it's a slick taxing system. But that's why I'm annoyed because of the educational system. Most people say, well, yeah, this is trouble. I agree with you, Rod. We have to do something about this inflation. We want more money. Send us more money so we can pay our bill. Well, that's why the solution on top of the mess that we have is not going to be accepted readily. And that's why I think it's an educational issue more than just getting more congressmen thinking along these lines.
Yeah, well said. I mean, Luke Groman, who's the founder and president of Forest the Trees, for example, made a statement on X saying that, quote, the Fed hiking or cutting rates is fiscal policy because the U.S. debt to GDP ratio is at 125%, and interest expense is the second biggest fiscal line item at nearly 30% of receipts. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's on autopilot, Nobody's going to cut anything, and that's why I'm very pessimistic on how this is going to end. But I'm also optimistic that the rumblings going on in the libertarian circles, the Austrian school, is that rumbling is louder than ever before, and there's a lot of people who do know this. Matter of fact, there were people back in 1913 that knew about it. Even at the time of the founders, there were people that knew continental dollar failed, and that's why they tried to write the Constitution a little bit better than what they had, before we had the Constitution. It said only gold and silver can be legal tender. So the knowledge is there. The temptation is overwhelming, and the people yield to it because it's power and money. And to have that, you have to have control of the monetary system. And right now, we've gone now, especially since 1971, for this to accumulate. And the paper amount is great out there. The real wealth is not necessarily high. But the other thing that is really causing trouble is when you have this wealth so poorly distributed, you end up with you end up with class warfare. Some people get richer than the other, and that, I think, is the biggest political threat we have. And that's why people, if there is a sincere effort to cut back, that have to deal with that, discrimination against one group against the other in the correction of what's happened for all these years.
Yeah, we keep hearing that divide between Wall Street and Main Street. To your point, I mean, the call to end the Fed, or at least to see major reforms in the Fed, has been really gaining traction. Senator Mike Lee from Utah called the Fed to be under the direction of the president, posting on X that, quote, the executive branch should be under the direction of the president. That's how the Constitution was designed. The Federal Reserve is one of the many examples of how we've deviated from the Constitution in that regard. Yet another reason why we should, quote, end the Fed. Now, Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk reposted this, adding that 100 emoji that's used to convey agreement. Now, you've mentioned that ultimately the Fed will face public backlash, but what will it take for this to become a more central issue and to be, more of a mainstream narrative?
Well, I think we move constantly toward Venezuela and Zimbabwe, and eventually the end stages go very rapidly. When people rush out of the dollar system, but I don't think it's going to happen next month or so because the other countries we've made them dependent on us. But there's going to be some incident, and it may, because we're constantly aggravating people with our foreign policy, whether it's in Ukraine, which we finally are getting a little bit tired of, and look how long it took us to get tired of Afghanistan, and look how long it took us to get out of Vietnam, and that lingers, and that has to stop because the people finally get sick and tired of it. And I think they're getting there, but I think there's a lack of understanding. That's why I really emphasize the fact that we need a new generation of people, and why I was so pleased with our campaign, our national campaign, that a lot of young people understand inflation a lot better than the people I knew in Congress.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like you can almost explain it a little better. I mean, the concept of the Fed independence from the other perspective is supposed to give the central bank the ability to shape monetary policy decisions, such as raising or lowering interest rates, based solely on the future health of the U.S. economy. So, I mean, maybe the intentions were there, but why do you think that this approach has been failing?
Well, there's a lot of people who approach us say that we need smarter people that have been in business, and I know what to do, and they will know, what the interest rate should be, and that's a complete fallacy. The market works when you have free market pricing, but when you have raising price controls, I remember when they came on in the 70s, and it was within a day or two there were shortages. I mean, it was so fast, but it was overwhelming. So you have to have pricing, but you can't have fair market pricing if you have a currency that you can't define. You have to have a definition of the currency of what it actually is, and then you have to recognize there is no way you could get the smartest and richest people in the world to say, I know what the interest rate should be. Well, in a way, I know, let the market decide.
Yeah, speaking of high-profile people, President-elect Donald Trump has named two of them to lead an ambitious effort aimed at cutting federal spending, eliminating regulations, and restructuring government agencies. Tesla CEO Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, a former Republican presidential candidate, have been tapped to lead what Trump is calling the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. In a statement released Tuesday night, Trump explained that the DOGE group will operate outside of the federal government, working closely with the White House House Office of Management and Budget to implement its recommendations. Musk, who is the world's wealthiest person and oversees 6 major companies, will not become an official government employee, which means he likely won't be required to divest from his business holdings. Trump has given Musk and Ramaswamy a deadline of July 4th, 2026, the nation's 250th anniversary, to complete their work. Trump described the effort as the perfect, quote, gift to America on the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. Now, Musk posted on X that the actions of the Department of Government Efficiency will be posted online for maximum transparency. And he also previously stated that he hopes to cut federal spending by at least $2 trillion. Interestingly enough, the acronym DOGE is a nod to the cryptocurrency Dogecoin, which Musk has frequently promoted. It's worth noting, following the announcement, Dogecoin saw a jump of about 120% in value over the past week. Dr. Paul, how urgent is it to do something about all of this?
Well, it's very urgent, and I would say about 20 years ago. No, it'll keep getting worse. And this establishment of the committee to get rid of waste, fraud, and the inefficiency of the government, I think it's very good, and they have 2 good people that know and understand it. But the one thing that bothers me is we've had many votes in the Congress to pass a bill that says we have to get rid of waste, fraud, and inefficiency. Well, I voted for it because you should work for that, but it doesn't work. I mean, the whole thing is, it's not the lack of somebody that knows what the interest rate should be and how the money should be spent. They do not realize that they don't know what to do, and governments by nature are inefficient. And that's why you have to have a free market. You can't regulate and say, well, we need smarter people. Then you end up with everybody from the radical communist system to some people who say, well, no, we just have to have a lot smarter people deciding what the interest rate should be, and they don't know. They said it even when the Fed does, and everybody looks at it, and 1 hour later the markets move $10 billion or trillions of dollars, and then a couple hours later, it's reversed again. So, no, I am very, very biased toward looking for answers through the promotion of liberty and voluntarism. It's imperfect, but I'll tell you what, it's a lot better than everything being determined by authoritarians.
Yeah, you talk about this department of, this DOGE that we just spoke about with Elon Musk. What would you like to see tackled first in this initiative?
Well, the ultimate goal is to clean up our mess, is to get rid of this wicked monetary system, which is a tax system. That is, get rid of the Fed. But as a preliminary step, at least come out in a couple of years, we ought to be able to handle, leaders like this to say, we need to know what's going on. And I would say just add another item to that list of auditing. How about the Pentagon? Just think of the Pentagon and all the spending that goes on, and it's not much good coming of it. This whole idea that you have to be patriotic and and support all these wars, and you have to bow to the military because they're our heroes. Well, I'll tell you what, it's an illegal thing. It's not national defense. It is not there to define a national defense. It's designed there to serve the interests of very powerful people, and many of them are in the military-industrial complex, and they have a lot of clout.
A lot of power. Okay, well, we recently heard from Elon that he wants you as part of the Department of Government Efficiency. He posted on X saying, it would be great to have Ron Paul as part of the team. Would you be interested, Dr. Paul? As your phone rang today?
Yeah, I'm interested as long as they don't make me sign up to be a member of some committee and working in the government. But I think the idea, because I work in ideas. So, I've talked to a few people that are loosely associated with the group, and I've expressed an interest. I'm if he calls, I'll answer and say, I'll do the best I can, but you might not like my idea of getting rid of the Fed. And you see, along with the Fed, I'd want to get rid of the income tax totally and completely. So,
interesting.
But you can't do that unless you cut the spending. And I think Musk understands that. You have to cut the spending. But that's where the political, problems occur, because the people are always for cutting spending for somebody else.
So that's what you'd focus your attention on in that role. Hypothetically, is, getting rid of that income tax and obviously cutting some deficit.
Right, I think so. I think that's very important, because the deficits, it's an immediate tax, because that the money will be taken from the people some way, and it's usually, the gross amount of it is always fiat money.
Yeah. Okay, well, before I let you go, I need to get your thoughts on gold quickly, Dr. Powell, because gold hit multiple new record highs this year, rising above $2,700 US an ounce on the spot side. I think right now we're seeing a pullback below $2,600 an ounce. I mean, the metal is still up more than 25% year to date. You're a big supporter of having exposure to gold. What's your take on gold going into next year?
Gold is golden, and gold has a record. And that's why when you come up with another new scheme that I don't understand, and it may appear that the people are, interested in it, I look at history, and not only did they have the coinage, more than 2,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago, they understand how important gold was. And I would say that I like that history and how long it's lasted. And I think that tells us. So I think that, and what I watch most, that I think has the most direct effect on on the marketplace is the price of gold, and that reflects spending, and that it reflects deficits, and they hide deficits. They do everything else, and they cheat. The Federal Reserve doesn't tell you what they do when there's a crisis, but no, it's a system that works, and the deficit is a big deal, and the government is not. I shouldn't say it, because a lot of people are hopeful, and I'm hopeful too, that this administration will do better. But the politics of it, they're very sincere and they're very capable. But I think the market's going to take care of it. There will be a liquidation of the debt, and there will be a liquidation of the mail investment, but it will be done by runaway inflation and making the dollar worth less and less on a daily basis.
Yes, I mean, is that what we're seeing in terms of the gold prices right now? I mean, if we're seeing these all-time highs, what does that mean in regards to the market?
Yeah, well, the markets do what they have to do, but I think the markets. When I think back so much to August 15th of '71, because I would have a lot of conversations and started speaking out about it. Even I, who was saying this is dangerous, this is bad, but in the last year, the explosion of interest in gold, I knew about it, but when it happened, it was still, holy man, it really did happen. Yeah. And of course, if I had to assume what's going to happen, yes, I think it's going to continue. To think that we're past the day where you won't see when the gold exploded in the 70s, it went from 35 up to 800. Overreacted and stuff like that. And I think there's no reason why people shouldn't say, well, you know what? It will be nothing like that. Maybe it'll go up 10, 20, 30% or something. No, I think you're going to see it double, triple, and quadruple if we don't do the right thing. And that's why I hope those who want to cut the spending and tie it into monetary policy, they're very important. They have a very important job, and I wish them well.
Yeah, and you brought up the momentum of BRICS there. I mean, do you see gold playing a greater role in monetary policy in the U.S. and globally kind of going forward? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's good, but I think that's history. I think I don't think they could cancel that out. I think there's so many other things that's built on paper. The malinvestment. People don't talk about the malinvestment. All the things that they they build and invest and becomes pyramidal, and it builds and builds and builds, that when it starts collapsing down, it's much bigger than they realize. And we witnessed that, but it seems like so far they have prevented the total runaway, the big crash. But I think if we continue to do what we're doing now, that's why I hope that this new administration will be very serious about cutting.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of talk about this gold-backed currency. You ever think we're going to go back there?
I think it'll naturally go back. I think a few people will go back. I think of myself in a little sort of a silly way. I'm on the gold standard. What I do is I try to, if I have properties that could be blown up by a storm or something, I'd like to protect what I own by something that they can't devalue. And I think. See, I thought in 1975, one of the best victories we had, the 71 was horrible, but in 75, we re-legalized the private ownership of gold in this country. Can you see that? 42 years it was that we weren't even allowed to own it. So back then, I said, more than half of my life, we weren't even allowed to own gold. So in 75, it opened up the door. So in many ways, people have, and I see that a lot of people are now trying to get people to realize the stock market's high. This is a chance. Gold is not booming at the moment. Maybe this is at the time that you prepare for that, because I believe there will be a day when you will see gold double and triple once again.
Yeah, we had Judy Shelton on. I think you know her, and she was talking about this idea of having U.S. treasuries converted to gold. Any thoughts on this?
Yes, and I read all about it. Not every state's doing it, but that's better than saving Federal Reserve notes. So I think they should, and they're recognizing its value. But I want to just keep it legal, and I think competing currencies should be legal. And we've worked in the states to try to get the states not to have sales taxes or capital gain taxes on gold coins. Why tax money? Yeah. So that I just legalize it, and the people will take care of the rest.
Yeah, sound money, having a good movement. Dr. Ron Paul, I know you got to go here. Former U.S. Congressman, two-time presidential candidate, and the host of the Liberty Report, which I'm sure our viewers would love to check out. Thanks for your time today. We appreciate it as always.
Thank you. Nice to be with you.
Now, of course, a big thank to our sponsor, Goldback. If you're hearing about Goldbacks for the first time, they're an innovative way to own real spendable 24-karat gold. Now, each Goldback is a physical gold note made through advanced technology that embeds pure gold directly into a lightweight, durable form. So when you're holding a Goldback bill, you're also holding actual gold. And at a time when inflation and currency devaluation are on the rise, Goldbacks offer a great way to protect your wealth that goes beyond typical cash. Since each Goldback is made from real gold, its value grows along with the price of gold, giving you a hedge against inflation that cash just cannot provide. Now, because Goldbacks come in smaller denominations, starting at just around $5, they make it easy to own gold without the need for a large upfront investment. But Goldbacks aren't just for storage. They're also designed to be used. Accepted as legal tender in a growing list of over 2,000 businesses, Goldbacks allow you to make purchases big or small, from the morning coffee or groceries to larger expenses like a new pair of shoes. There's car repairs, even chartering a flight. Now, they combine the long-term flexibility of gold with the flexibility of cash, making them a practical option for everyday spending or as a strategic addition to your savings. Goldbacks even offer a unique opportunity to earn interest, which is paid you back on Goldbacks, helping you eventually grow your gold holdings. Now, if you're interested in learning more about how to start using Goldbacks as a secure, versatile way to hold and spend real gold, visit goldback.com or simply click the link in our description. It's a simple, powerful way to make gold part of your financial future. For all of us here at Kitco News, I'm Jeremy Saffron. Thank you for watching. Of course, we're also watching the current news headlines, including that price action on Bitcoin. We'll have plenty more this week. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching.
This Kitco News interview is brought to you by Goldback, inflation-resistant, 24-karat gold currency. Protect your purchasing power, grow your wealth annually, and spend at over 2,000 businesses. Learn where to get Goldbacks at goldback.com.